What if the quietest person in the room was the one holding the detonator? When 24-year-old Chen Washington walks into her first day as an intern at the towering offices of Prestige Financial, she's wearing a bargain bin jacket and carrying a battered briefcase. By lunch, she's been publicly mocked, doused in coffee, and given the kind of grunt work meant to crush ambition. By evening, her accuser will be facing the board, his career in ruins. Chen Washington steps from the elevator into the open glass of Prestige Financial Group at 8 sharp, cheap jacket buttoned, old briefcase polished within an inch of its life. The receptionist looks past her to the reflection of someone else, as if Maya were a shadow that forgot to stand in place. No badges left, she is told. A security pass appears anyway when the guard with the careful eyes decides that rules allow common sense. At the bullpen, senior manager Derek Williams does not look up from his phone. He lets silence rehearse itself, a small stage where he is the only actor who matters. Then he lifts a paper stack, drops it just short of the desk edge, and watches the top sheet skid to the floor. Affirmative action has gone too far, he says to the screen, not to her. But we all need our illusions. She bends, collects the sheet, and sets the stack square. Maya, she says, plain as a calendar. In Sanskrit, it means illusion, a reminder that surfaces lie. A flicker, almost not there, crosses his brow. He snorts, a cough with opinions. Cute. Coffee? He nods to the intern cluster. Jennifer Walsh, Yale on her tote in raised letters, lifts her phone just enough to catch angles. The lens drinks in the room. The tick-tock whisper crosses the desks like a breeze. The word bully has not yet been said, but you can hear where it is headed. Derek reaches for his mug, then lets it tilt. The arc is deliberate. A brown fan lands across Maya's printed resume, blotching the header, pooling in the corner where the education line sits. Oh, he says, faux chagrin. Clumsy me, don't worry, you'll be on coffee duty anyway. Laughs arrive in the safe cadence of office jokes. Not everyone joins. A cleaner in a navy shirt, Rodriguez, stitched in white on the chest, moves a bucket toward the spill without being asked. He meets Maya's eyes a second longer than politeness needs, a small signal. I saw. Derek starts assigning work like throwing bread to birds. Big projects to the stars, he says, gesturing at 2 interns whose last names match donor plaques. And for you, his chin at Maya, paper, printers, and caffeine. If you're lucky, you can staple something important. Happy to help, she answers, voice even. And to learn, he smirks. You'll learn what not to do. Also that surname, Washington. Any relation to… Never mind. I suppose we're all descended from something. Some of us descend slower, Jennifer murmurs to her phone, not quietly enough. Maya does not flinch. She opens her notebook. Its paper is thick, unlined, a habit from a school in Switzerland where neatness was a kind of courtesy. She writes in an unhurried hand. 805 lobby. No badge. Guard Marcus Thompson overrides. 819, Derek Williams. Documents dropped. Remark about affirmative action. Intentional spill on resume. Witnesses. Jennifer Walsh and others near the bullpen. Names on badges. Sarah Chen, Michael Torres, Patricia Hayes. She does not underline anything. Underlining is an argument. She is not arguing. She is recording. Around 10, Derek invents a quiz. He stands by a glass wall where the city looks like numbers. Let's do a pop test, he declares, volume enough to find listeners who did not volunteer. Return on investment. Define it without your phones. He points at Maya first, because the spectacle requires a target. Phones rise, screens glow. Jennifer's hand trembles with anticipation. Return on investment is the ratio of net gain to cost, Maya says. You can express it as a percentage. Net profit divided by investment times 100. But the context matters. Time, risk, and the basis of the cost. Derek's mouth tightens. EBITDA? Earnings before interest, taxes, depreciation, and amortization. A proxy for operating performance. Useful but abusable. He tosses a report on the table, pages clipped but not straight. Analyze last quarter. Capitalization strategy, red flags. You have 5 minutes. She scans, pen hovering. The numbers settle into patterns she already knows by heart. Deferred revenues recognized too smoothly. Headcount flat while output leaps. Notes that hint more than they tell. She delivers 3 points. Clear, spare, each tethered to a line item. Your working capital management is masking cash stress, she concludes. There's a reliance on one client concentrate that is not disclosed plainly in the narrative. And the capitalization of certain software costs seems optimistic given the stated deployment dates. Silence. Then the small sound of someone forgetting to breathe. Jennifer's camera angle changes. The caption she had planned will not fit anymore. Derek's eyes harden. He laughs, but it scrapes. Textbook. You practice that? Or do your cousins at Washington Holdings do that for you? The room shifts. The word cousins is not the word he means. He lets the next sentence dangle like a trap. People with your look always have connections. Phones keep recording. Maya writes, 10:42, Derek. People with your look. Implication of race and nepotism. Witnesses. Interns around the table, plus Patricia Hayes at copier. At lunch, she sits alone by the window and deletes a message she technically should not have received at all. The sender line says, Washington Holdings. The subject line is an invitation to a briefing she will later attend in another name. She lets it vanish. Undercover only works if you believe your own badge. The afternoon introduces escalation. Derek passes by her desk twice too often, checks the printer logs, asks for a status on a task she was never assigned. He stops a floor warden to ask about security protocols as if casually curious. The warden shrugs. The guard with the careful eyes, Marcus, watches, then makes a slow circuit that ends near Maya's chair. You keep notes, he says quietly, as if remarking on the weather. I forget otherwise, she answers. He nods. Cameras forget less. If you ever need timestamps, call it a safety review. They cannot say no. She opens a new line. 1407, Marcus. Offers to retrieve footage if needed. Said to call it safety review. By mid-afternoon, the hashtag begins to bud on phones like mold in fast motion. Jennifer's clip gets its first 1,000 in the time it takes to refill a mug. The caption reads like a ready-made verdict. Prestige meets reality, watch till end. Maya does not watch. She logs the moment the murmurs turn into a current that twists HR's face into public relations. Derek assigns the last task of the day with the pride of a conductor. End of day print and bind for the client deck, he says to everyone, except Maya. She hasn't earned staples. She can sort the recycling. Happy to, Maya says. Where do you want the copies delivered when they are done? He blinks, sure that he heard wrong. I said, I heard. But the bind machine is jammed and the deck will be late unless someone clears it. I already did. Someone laughs, not at Maya. The sound lands on Derek like grit. He sweeps a hand toward her notebook. What's all that then? Doodles? Prayer list? Notes, she says. So I can be precise later. Later for what? For remembering who said what. At 15:30, Jennifer's video crosses into real virality. Comments multiply. The company name begins to trend with a word whose legal meaning has an appetite. HR appears at the edge of the bullpen, whispering the kind of whispers that come with policy manuals. Derek smiles like a man who believes he cannot drown in the sea he has spent years treating as a bathtub. At 15:50, Patricia Hayes sends a message to Derek. There is a rumor about a breach, an intern looking at documents beyond her clearance. Derek's reply is one word: perfect. Maya writes the time, the names, the subject line she should not know and does because people forget that glass walls do not mute screens. She closes the notebook. She has enough for one day. At 1600, there will be a meeting of interns and a form of accounting. Between now and then, Derek will try one more thing. The guard will stand near the door. The camera above the potted plant will keep blinking. And Maya, cheap jacket still buttoned, will carry her old briefcase like a promise she intends to keep. It begins with a whiteboard marker squeaking under too much pressure. Derek is already at the front of the glass-walled conference room, sleeves rolled, tie loose, the posture of a man about to prove something. The interns file in, carrying laptops, legal pads, and that wary politeness of people who do not yet know which side they will be on. Maya takes a chair at the far end. Her notebook rests on the table, closed but not hidden. "I thought we'd test the raw material today," Derek announces, uncapping the marker with his teeth. Finance isn't just theory, it's speed, accuracy, and pressure. Some of you will thrive, some— He lets the pause bloom. "We'll find other career paths." The first term lands on the board in large block letters. ROI. He turns abruptly. "Chen, define it." A few heads turn toward Maya, some curious, some relieved not to be chosen. She does not reach for her phone. "Return on investment," she says evenly. "Ratio of net gain to total cost, expressed as a percentage." But without time horizon and risk profile, the figure can mislead. A faint line appears at the edge of Derek's smile. He writes EBITDA, smaller, as if daring her. "Earnings before interest, taxes, depreciation, and amortization," she replies. "Operational profitability proxy. Excludes financing structure and tax jurisdiction effects." The room shifts. The scribbling of Jennifer's phone camera is almost audible. Derek flips open a folder, pulls a printed quarterly report, and drops it on the table in front of Maya. 5 minutes. Identify 3 weaknesses in this firm's capitalization approach. Speak clearly enough for the whole room. Maya scans the report, eyes moving in short bursts. Her pen marks 3 lines, 1 in the income statement, 2 in the notes. First, she begins, "Working capital ratios suggest an over-reliance on short-term liabilities to fund long-term projects." Second, deferred revenue recognition is unusually smooth, likely a sign of earnings management. Third, software development costs are capitalized aggressively despite delays in deployment milestones. For a moment, no one breathes. Then Michael Torres, seated opposite, exhales in something between a laugh and a cough. Jennifer's phone dips. Her mouth twists as if recalculating a caption. Derek's tone hardens. "Impressive for an intern. Family background in finance, perhaps?" "I read," Maya answers. "Reading doesn't give you instincts like that," he says. "Connections do. People with your look often have networks." The word look hangs in the air, heavier than intended. A few eyes flick toward the camera in Jennifer's hands. Even she seems momentarily unsettled. Maya clicks her pen, opens her notebook, and writes, 1051, Derek Williams. Remark linking ethnicity to supposed nepotism in front of 7 witnesses. Derek notices the movement. "What's that, keeping score?" "Keeping record," she says without glancing up. His jaw tightens. He shifts tactics. "Let's see how you do under public pressure." He invites Patricia Hayes, an operations analyst passing by, to join. "Patricia, stay and watch. This is training." He throws another document at Maya, a set of raw ledger entries. The dates are shuffled, some figures misaligned. "Reconstruct the monthly cash flow. 2 minutes." Her hands move fast but steady, grouping entries, correcting obvious typos, pulling totals. She reads them out without hesitation. January. Net inflow 2.8 million. February. Deficit 400,000. March. Surplus 1.1 million, but dependent on delayed vendor payments. Patricia's eyebrows lift. "That's accurate," she says, almost in surprise. The session falters. Derek flips the marker in his hand, then sets it down. "We'll stop here," he says too quickly. "Return to your tasks." As chairs scrape back, Maya catches Jennifer lowering her phone, her expression caught between annoyance and curiosity. The whisper of an upload begins to ripple across the room. By the time Maya reaches her desk, Marcus the guard passes behind her with deliberate slowness. "Meeting in conference 3 just now," he says quietly. "Camera in the corner works fine. Records audio too." She nods once. The notebook opens again. 11:29, Marcus confirms camera in conference 3, records audio. Across the bullpen, Jennifer's phone screen flashes with a familiar interface, views climbing in real time. A short clip plays on loop. Maya answering, Derek tightening. The caption reads, "Intern schools the boss. Wait for his face." The numbers climb past 10,000 before lunch. The hallway is too quiet for this floor. It's the kind of silence that means people are speaking somewhere else, about you, without the courtesy of doing it out loud. Maya steps out of the break room with a paper cup of tea, slow enough to catch fragments from the side office near the fire door. "She had no clearance," Sarah Chen is saying. Michael Torres answers, low. "If we tie it to the breach protocol, IT will freeze her account. Done by end of day." Then Derek, "And we don't even have to show proof. Just raise the flag, let security do the rest." The words settle like grit in water, visible if you look, invisible if you pretend not to. Maya doesn't pause. She walks past as if the sound were just air conditioning. Back at her desk, the notebook opens. 1308. Voices. Derek Williams, Sarah Chen, Michael Torres. Planning to allege breach of document security, no evidence discussed. The afternoon moves with false calm. Derek sends her for copier toner that doesn't exist on their floor. Sarah forgets to forward a file she promised. Michael walks by twice, glancing at her screen as though expecting to see stolen secrets. At 14:15, Marcus appears again, leaning on her cubicle wall like a man with a slow errand. "Conference 2 camera is blind," he says. "But hallway cams are clean. I've got the feed from this morning and mid-morning. If they try something, we can match timelines." "You're sure you want to get involved?" Maya asks. "Already am," he says. "Bullying's easy until someone writes it down or films it." She makes a note. 14:15, Marcus. Confirms availability of hallway cam footage. Offers retrieval. Minutes later, Derek sends a calendar invite to all interns. Mandatory debrief. 1600, Conference 1. No subject line, no agenda. By 1500, Jennifer's clip has passed 70,000 views. The comments are less amused than she probably intended. Why is he talking like that to her? HR better see this. Name and shame. HR does see it. Two of their staff walk the floor, stopping at random desks, speaking in those tight, smiling tones that belong to damage control. Derek watches them the way a gambler watches the wrong horse win, still convinced he can rewrite the race. At 15:25, Sarah slips a sealed envelope onto Derek's desk. He opens it with a knife, reads, and smirks. Patricia Hayes appears in the doorway, frowning. "You're sure about this?" she asks. "Positive," Derek says. "By the time she tries to deny it, her login will be dead. Then she's just a visitor without a pass." Patricia doesn't answer. She leaves without looking at Maya. The quiet in the corridor thickens. The hum of printers sounds louder than it should. Every few minutes, someone glances at Maya's desk as if checking whether she's still there. At 15:45, Marcus drops a small USB drive by her keyboard. "Today's footage so far," he says. "Lobby, bullpen, hallway outside Conference 2. You'll want to keep it safe." "Thank you," she says. "Don't thank me," he replies. "Just use it when it counts." The drive vanishes into her briefcase. The notebook closes. She waits. When the clock edges toward 1600, Derek stands in the center of the bullpen and claps his hands once. "Conference 1, he says. "Bring your notes, if you have any." They file into the glass room. Interns, Derek, Sarah, Michael, Patricia, and a pair of HR observers who pretend to be casual. Marcus takes up a post just outside the door, hands behind his back, gaze fixed somewhere above eye level. Derek opens with authority. "We have a problem. One of our interns accessed confidential documents without clearance. This is a violation of our security protocol and grounds for immediate dismissal." He pauses. The individual is Maya Chen Washington. A ripple moves through the room. Maya sits still, pen in hand. "I invite you," she says, "to state the date, time, document name, and any witnesses to this alleged access." Derek's jaw works. "We don't need to get into that level of, you made a specific accusation," she says, voice calm but carrying. Specific accusations require specific evidence. Please continue. Sarah shifts in her seat. Michael clears his throat. HR watches without blinking. The silence stretches, long enough to count heartbeats. Finally, Derek says, "We'll provide the details after IT completes its review." Maya writes, 1603, Derek, unable to produce specifics when asked. The pen clicks shut. Noted, she says. Outside, Marcus adjusts his stance. Above him, the small red light on the corner camera blinks, recording every second. The projector hums before the lights dim. Maya stands, briefcase in hand, and walks to the end of the table. Derek leans back in his chair, arms crossed, the picture of a man who believes control is a permanent asset. "I think," she says evenly, "we can settle this without waiting for IT." She sets her briefcase on the table, clicks open the brass locks, and pulls out a small laptop. The cable to the projector finds its port with a quiet snap. The screen on the wall changes. No company logo, no slides. Instead, a plain folder view. The first file is labeled with a date and the words email extract, Williams. Derek's smile freezes. "You have no authority to—" "This," she interrupts, "is your correspondence from the last 3 months, obtained through authorized oversight as part of a board-directed audit. Here," she clicks, "is where you instruct a recruiter to exclude applicants with overly ethnic appearances to keep the client roster comfortable. Here, you advise bypassing diversity quotas by reclassifying roles as temporary consulting." A murmur runs the length of the table. Jennifer's phone rises slowly, her earlier confidence replaced by something sharper. Maya scrolls. "And here, 3 weeks ago, you write to Sarah and Michael about fabricating a breach accusation against a junior staffer. You even timestamp it, which is helpful for cross-referencing with security footage." Sarah looks down at her hands. Michael shifts in his seat as if the chair suddenly grew smaller. Derek pushes his chair back. "This is a violation of what?" Maya's voice is still calm, but the air around it tightens. "Your comfort? The truth?" She turns to the HR observers. "You've seen the trending video today. You've had staff reports. This is the documented pattern: racial bias, retaliation, false accusations." She changes the display. Footage appears. Marcus's hallway camera, timestamped, showing Derek, Sarah, and Michael in their side office. Audio overlays their earlier words about not needing proof. The room watches itself commit the conspiracy. Jennifer's camera shakes slightly as she records, the frame catching Derek's face when the audio ends. Maya straightens. "I am Maya Elizabeth Washington, member of the board and director for diversity and compliance at Washington Holdings, which owns 67% of this firm. My task here was an undercover evaluation of workplace culture. You have provided a thorough case study." Silence. Even the projector fan seems to hesitate. Patricia Hayes is the first to speak. "Your board?" "Yes," Maya says, "and I have been documenting every violation since 8:05 this morning. Names, times, witnesses. Coupled with this footage, the email archives, and public social media evidence, the case is complete." Derek tries to laugh, but it catches in his throat. "You can't just—" "I can," she says simply, "and I will." She closes the laptop, unhooks the cable, and nods toward Marcus outside the glass. He steps in, placing a slim file on the table, signed witness statements, camera logs, and a summary from security. "This meeting," Maya continues, "is concluded. The next discussion will be at the board level, today at 1800 hours, 48th floor. Attendance mandatory for named parties: Derek Williams, Sarah Chen, Patricia Hayes, Michael Torres. HR will accompany." The HR observers rise immediately, one of them gathering their notes with deliberate care. As people stand, Maya turns to Rodriguez, the cleaner who had mopped her coffee-stained resume that morning. "Mr. Rodriguez," she says clearly, "please take that chair." She gestures to Derek's seat. He blinks, startled. "Me?" "Yes. You were the only one here who acted with basic respect without knowing who I was." That matters. Derek stands rigid, eyes locked on the empty space his chair used to occupy. The projector screen behind him is blank now, but the weight of what it showed lingers like heat after a flame. In the corridor, the quiet is different. Less of a whisper, more of a held breath before something breaks. The interns watch Maya walk past, the cheap jacket still buttoned, the old briefcase in her hand. She does not look back. The boardroom on the 48th floor does not forgive noise. Glass walls show the city already sliding into evening, each window reflection making the table look longer than it is. At the head, Chairwoman Evelyn Hart taps a pen once, enough to draw every eye. Let's begin. Derek sits 2 seats from the end, shoulders squared as if posture can still win him ground. Sarah, Patricia, and Michael are beside him, smaller in their chairs than they were that morning. HR occupies the middle, folders aligned like a barricade. Maya places her briefcase on the table, opens it, and removes 3 items. Her notebook, the USB drive from Marcus, and a printed dossier sealed with the Washington Holdings crest. This, she begins, is a consolidated record of today's events, supported by video, audio, and email archives. It documents violations of federal anti-discrimination statutes, targeted retaliation, and deliberate fabrication of misconduct charges. She slides copies toward Evelyn and the General Counsel. Section 1. Direct quotes from staff with timestamps and identified witnesses. Section 2. Internal communications from Mr. Williams, Ms. Chen, and Mr. Torres. Section 3. Social media content currently viewed over 200,000 times, linking the company name to documented harassment. Section 4. Calculated financial risk. Evelyn gestures for her to elaborate. Projected annual losses, Maya says, $15.1 million. Legal costs, settlement estimates, recruitment expenses due to minority staff attrition, and reputational impact on client retention. Productivity loss from the hostile environment, measurable at 23% in affected teams. All of this is preventable. She places a final sheet on the table. And here is the proposed reform plan. Immediate leadership accountability, creation of an anonymous complaint system with algorithmic monitoring for discriminatory language, mandatory training tied to performance reviews, and establishment of a dedicated equity fund. The silence that follows is not reluctance, it is calculation. Board members read, eyes scanning numbers and lines. Evelyn speaks first. Votes on disciplinary actions. Starting with Mr. Williams. The roll call is brisk, unanimous. Termination without severance. Addition to industry misconduct registry. Sarah Chen. Demotion and mandatory completion of compliance training within 60 days. Michael Torres. Written censure and probation. Patricia Hayes. Reassignment to a non-supervisory role. Maya adds, intern Jennifer Walsh will be released from her position but offered the option to complete an ethics project for academic credit, contingent on documented improvement. Evelyn nods. Approved. Then, turning back to Maya, and your final recommendation? Maya glances toward Rodriguez, waiting outside the glass wall. Establish the Rodriguez Scholarship Fund, $500,000 annually, for underrepresented students pursuing finance and economics, administered by Washington Holdings. The motion passes without dissent. When the meeting adjourns, Derek walks out flanked by HR, the skyline behind him dimming to shadow. Sarah and Michael avoid Maya's eyes. Patricia mutters something that could be an apology but doesn't finish it. Rodriguez enters the now empty room at Maya's invitation. She hands him a folder. This is the foundation paperwork. Your name will be on every award letter. He blinks. I just mopped the floor. You treated someone you didn't know with respect, she says. That's harder to find than technical skill. 3 months later, the metrics speak. Productivity up 23%, minority staff turnover at 0. The anonymous complaint portal active and already resolving cases. CNN runs a segment titled The Washington Method. Harvard Business School lists the case in its curriculum. A year after that, 43 companies have adopted the Undercover audit model. The Rodriguez Fund grows to over $4 million, funding 156 scholarships. Jennifer, now working at a nonprofit, sends Maya an email that begins, "I was wrong." On her desk, Maya keeps the cheap jacket, cleaned but still faintly smelling of coffee. Not as a reminder of the insult, but of the day proof was gathered, a culture was shifted, and silence in the hallway began to mean something else entirely.